Yes guys, welcome back to another video. You guys currently join me here at the rather lovely Wolverton station on the West Coast Main Line. It's a lovely blue sunny day, winter's afternoon in January. I've just done some train spotting in Milton Keynes Central, video already out now. So yeah, if you guys want to watch that, that's great. But yeah, so we're here at Wolverton, but we're not going to be doing train spotting just yet. We are going to be doing a collab. So joining me today is the one and only, the awesome Western Rail Spotter.
Hello, how you guys doing?
And we're going to be collaborating, and we are going to be talking about the East Coast Main Line versus the West Coast Main Line,
Yeah.
a topic that is heavily debated in the railway industry and community, but there's never really an answer. So we're going to be talking about that. I'm going to be defending the West Coast, whilst you're going to be defending the East Coast.
Yeah.
As well as that, we will also be talking about the good and the bad of the new December 2025 East Coast Main Line timetable change, and just the good and bad about the East Coast Main Line in general. So this is going to be the best collab ever at Wolverton Station, so you guys sit back, relax and enjoy this amazing video. So to start the video off, I'm going to be talking to you guys, telling you guys about a bit of an introduction to the West Coast Main Line, the line that we are currently on right now. So the West Coast Main Line I'd say is the most iconic railway line in the UK, and it is known for linking London with Glasgow, Scotland's largest city. But that's like the main core route of it, but there's also branches that go off to Birmingham New Street, Manchester Piccadilly, Liverpool Lime Street, and then there are a few trains that go to Blackpool and Chester and Holyhead, and there are so many big town cities on the West Coast Main Line, like Wolverhampton and Preston and Motherwell and Carlisle and things like that. But yeah, there's loads, but too much to name. Avanti West Coast currently operate the West Coast Main Line using their fleet of Class 390 Pendolinos, Class 805 and Class 807 Avero trains, which are part of the IET family. Previously, the West Coast Main Line was owned and operated by Virgin Trains, and before that it was like British Rail and stuff like that. And the West Coast Main Line is fully electrified. The North-West Coast Line, where some of the Avanti West Coast trains do go, it's not electrified, but it's not really part of the West Coast Main Line. And so yeah, it's about 405 miles long from Euston to Glasgow Central, and is the busiest mixed-use railway line in the whole of Europe. It is really good for freight. There's so much freight heading all across the UK. And so yeah, that's a little bit of an introduction to the West Coast Main Line for you.
Hello guys, hope you're all well. So basically I'm going to be talking about the ECML, also known and abbreviated as the East Coast Main Line, one of the secondary core routes to link London and Scotland. The route itself is 393 miles long, that connects the core part of London King's Cross, which is the southern terminus, and then to its northern terminus up in Edinburgh Waverley. However, there are other lines as well. The main operator, of course, London North Eastern Railway, or LNER for short, they do operate other lines such as Leeds, Lincoln Central, Aberdeen, Inverness as well. They also used to operate a route to Glasgow Central, but I will talk a bit more about that later on. But however, the southern section of the East Coast Main Line is quite busy, because you have other operators like Great Northern, Grand Central, Lumo, and Hull trains as well. So the southern section is very packed out. But then as you get sort of further north to like York, you start opening up again, and it starts getting more packed, because you've got Transpennine Express, Northern Rail, so it really does start getting a lot busier as you go further up the route. I first travelled on the East Coast back in 2023. Needed a holiday, so I thought, why not go to Edinburgh for the first time on my own? And then took the LNER Azuma, which the fleet was introduced back in the year 2019, just before the pandemic. Got a ride on the Azuma in 2023, did the whole 393 miles, and it was absolutely fantastic. You know, the time it took, only 5 stops, 4.5 hours, but it didn't feel like that to me. So yeah, it was one of the best routes, and so quick. And I'm hoping to do a bit more this year on it as well. Still got lots of videos to cover, and if you guys haven't seen my LNER route visuals, do go check them out.
So guys, like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm going to be saying why I think the West Coast Main Line is better than the East Coast, and just why I really like it. So just going back to what I said before, the West Coast Main Line does link the bigger cities in the UK, so London, Manchester, Birmingham, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Liverpool. Like, you have others like Wolverhampton, Preston and Carlisle, as well as lots of towns like Milton Keynes and Wigan and stuff like that. So the West Coast Main Line links all those cities, so it is good for the, I mean, I don't really know about the business side of things, but with the economy of this country and stuff like that, which I don't really know a lot about, but because obviously the bigger cities that generate the most money, produce lots of things, massive population, for business, like people like commute in between these cities for business and stuff. And I also believe the West Coast Main Line is very good for the variety of trains, but transport is sort of a different topic, but and with the scenery as well, because you have loads of urban places in the West Coast Main Line like Birmingham, London and Glasgow, but then the West Coast Main Line goes through some of the most rural parts of England and Scotland, that being the Lake District in Cumbria, up north of the West Coast Main Line, and through southern Scotland, the lowlands as they call it, in the counties of Dumfries and Galloway and South Lanarkshire. And yeah, the Class United Pendolinos is, I think, after the HST, Class 4 HST, is the most iconic intercity express train in the UK. And you also have the Avero's IET as well, which have been around for a good decade now, and they're starting to get their sort of fame, I'd say. And then you have other operators like London North Western Railway, ScotRail and Northern on various parts of the network.
So for this part, guys, I'll talk about sort of my favourite part when it comes to the East Coast Main Line. So having done the route 3 times myself, my favourite part about it is north of Newcastle. So as you get sort of closer to Berwick upon Tweed and you go over the very first time I crossed over the viaduct, almost felt like you were going to fall off, but not quite like that. But yeah, like all of that section of Northumberland, absolutely fantastic. And even after you leave Berwick and then you come across the North Sea, one of the most amazing parts about it. And then also, you know, even when you're just getting into Edinburgh as well, you can see all the buildings and everything and stuff like that. And then even as you carry on, it is, yeah, some of the great scenery. As with sort of the L&ER services, they do continue north sometimes. There are services on the timetable, which I have never done the Highland Main Line before, but it's something I really want to particularly do in the future. I have also done to Aberdeen as well from Edinburgh, which took me about 2 hours 23 minutes, which was a pretty good ride, because you're going over different areas like the Forth Bridge, the Tay Bridge just before you cross into Dundee, then also Montrose as well. So yeah, lots of great sections, definitely to check out. So yeah.
Going back to the scenery comparison of the East and West Coast Main Line, I do totally understand why some people love the views around the North Sea in Newcastle, across the Tweed Bridge or whatever it's called, Royal Border Bridge in Berwick, in Northumberland, and a beautiful countryside there. But I just don't. That is totally understandable. I just don't think that can beat the lovely mountains and the countryside in the Lake District in Cumbria, on the West Coast Main Line in between sort of Lancaster and Carlisle before it enters Scotland.
So the thing about with comparing sort of East and West Coast Main Line, what I found, I did the West Coast Main Line last year back in June, from Euston to Glasgow. I've noticed as well, like there are services that do run to Glasgow, but they go via New Street. And what I find that the difference is there is that if you ever do go to Edinburgh or Glasgow via Birmingham, you find that it takes normally like close to 6 hours, which I do find is a really long time. Whereas East Coast Main Line, usually it's like only just under 4.5 hours, because obviously with the West Coast Main Line you've got obviously lovely views and, you know, all that sort of stuff, but the speed that it drops down to, I find that when you're doing the tilts through like after Lancaster, so when you're going through the Lake District, obviously you notice the speed is going down. But whereas the East Coast Main Line, because it's all on flat terrain, obviously manages to stay 125 even after you're leaving York. York is the midpoint of the East Coast. You're literally still keeping to the speed of 125 miles an hour, which is actually, you know, and that's why I always felt the East Coast Main Line was one of the quickest routes. But in terms of obviously L&ER used to run all the way to Glasgow Central, but the reason that stopped was because apparently it was inefficient. So that's why they got rid of it. But we'll be talking about later the new timetable change. We'll kind of start unravelling a bit more about what's going on there.
So also continuing with the conversation about comparing the East Coast and West Coast Main Line, particularly in Scotland. So Avanti West Coast has direct trains from London Euston to Glasgow Central, Edinburgh Waverley. Like Ryland said, some Avanti West Coast trains to Glasgow Central go via Birmingham New Street in the West Midlands. The Edinburgh trains always go via Birmingham New Street in the West Midlands, but there are also some fast trains to Glasgow from Euston, operated by Avanti West Coast, that make their first stop at Warrington Bank Quay. That's like 2 hours out of London. So the original point is, it's good for Avanti West Coast to serve Edinburgh, because that's in LNER's territory, Edinburgh. So it's good for the business side of it to compete with another company. And it's just a good idea, isn't it, to have a train service that links the capital of England, London, the UK's second largest city, Birmingham, and the capital of Scotland, Edinburgh. And like Ryland said, LNER used to serve Glasgow Central, and this is a very complicated thing to talk about LNER and the East Coast Main Line to Glasgow. So that service would have left London King's Cross, calls it like Peterborough, Newark, Doncaster, York, Newcastle, Darlington, Durham, up to Edinburgh. But once it's at Edinburgh, called Motherwell, Haymarket, Motherwell, then Glasgow Central. And that it's why they removed the service, because like Ryland said, it's like inefficient or whatever. But it's also good. It's such a good idea for LNER to have a service that links the capital of England with the northeast. So you have the cities like Newcastle and Darlington, and Northumberland as well, with the capital of Scotland, with Motherwell and North Lanarkshire for the sort of greater North Lanarkshire area, and then Scotland's largest city. And I just don't understand why they removed it, because maybe not enough people are using it, but it is such a good service. And LNER should have kept the service when they were installing the new bridge over the M6 in Penrith back in January.
So on the 14th of December of last year, the East Coast Main Line timetable was changed. Out of, and quote unquote by LNER, they said they wanted faster journeys, which is something they did deliver. That's something they, have adhered to. More seats, again, they've adhered to that. But something that hadn't been quite right, that I disagreed with, was the way they worked the services up to Edinburgh. The first thing to notice was, off the original timetable, you'd have a fast train leaving, for example, 11 o'clock, could be under a head code of 1013, but then you'd have a semi-fast 11:30, so you'd have one every half an hour. But then what I've noticed at times, with the calling points, so on the fast it'll be, the first stop will be York, and then Darlington, Newcastle, Berwick, then Edinburgh. But then the trickiest part now is with the new timetable, it seems to be that LNER to still do York, but then rather than stopping at Darlington to reduce the amount of journey time, obviously crossing the points into Darlington station, they've decided to skip Darlington and call straight to Newcastle. And then also, even after Newcastle, they're skipping Berwick. The complication of this is, for those that wanted, for those that live up in Berwick, it might struggle quite a lot now. Obviously, depending on, whether peak time or, for those that are going to struggle trying to get a train up to Edinburgh direct like they used to, a lot of the freight operators haven't been particularly been keen with the new timetable. There's this other service that everyone knows about, the Highland Chieftain service, which is the London King's Cross to Inverness, which leaves from the previous timetable, it was about 12 midday, and then it'll get to Inverness by about 8:07. That was off the previous timetable. What I liked about the Highland Chieftain was that, before it would just be, again, call straight at York, Darlington, Newcastle, Berwick, it would skip all the other stations. But now it's changed. Now it's, it now leaves at 12:03 midday, and for some reason they've decided to add Peterborough, Newark, Doncaster, and they've done very similar for the Aberdeen services, which they never used to do but now have done it. And it just adds on that time of the journey, which is quite unnecessary, because a lot of the trains that are usually stopping at there would normally be Leeds. The Leeds services got adjusted to having Peterborough, Grantham, Doncaster, Wakefield, Leeds, when it used to be Stevenage, Grantham, Doncaster, Wakefield, Leeds. So there's been a lot of kind of, alterations with LNER, which I've disagreed on in a way, so it hasn't gone particularly well. But I think what I'd say that the only good thing about it was that, with the fast Edinburgh services not stopping at Darlington it is a good thing. You know, not having to worry about, you know, slowing down, crossing the points, because it was the one thing that, you know, sometimes you get a lot of the trains will pick up delay around Darlington, having to leave, come out of the station just to get back onto the main line, and then obviously, you know, picking up speed. But yeah, it is, well, from what it is now, it doesn't feel the same as what it used to be. So obviously, if you're doing those really long journeys, it does feel a lot longer than what it used to be. And then obviously now, Lumo have taken on a very unexpected twist. They have there was driver training around sort of like late October time, around about that, as they were testing the new their new route or the extension, or whatever you want to call it, to Glasgow Queen Street. They have now basically got they had the approval. Basically on the timetable, they've got 2 services. So basically, with the northbound services for Lumo, it's the 1214 and the 214 or 218, I think it is. I am planning to do Lumo this year because I haven't done them yet. I'm really keen to go for a ride on them, see what they're like, understand them. Because for their, you know, the way they are and the price as well, you know, they're very, Lumo and LNE are 2 major operators. They're both competing against each other. What I've noticed a lot lately is that Lumo seems to be the new take on, because they're charging a lot less to get to Edinburgh. So, you know, if you're just buying a one way, you can get it any time. It's about £63, and then compare that with LNER, it's, you know, it's probably like over almost like 70 something pounds. So, but those that are probably going on LNER have probably decided that they bought their tickets well in advance for a very cheap price. That's why LNER probably still gets busy. But if you look at Lumo's perspective, they are starting to really pick up the game now with all their services, and, you know, the amount of people using them, because, you know, those that need to get further into Scotland without having to change and get on a direct, you know, they can stay on a direct service, which makes life so much easier. So I really do hope though that Lumo do add more services on the timetable eventually, because it will, you know, increase that, you know, frequency. Because at the moment, it's LNER is still fairly, you know, LNER has been really good for its frequency, and, you know, the trains themselves as well. But hopefully over time, Lumo will start taking over, and I know they are due to start running on the West Coast this year from Euston to Stirling, which is going to be an interesting matter of fact to see.
So in my opinion, I think the extension of the Lumo trains from Edinburgh Waverley to Glasgow Queen Street is generally really good. The thing is with Glasgow Queen Street is that it's not as big and as iconic and such a big name like Glasgow Central is, so not everyone will know about the service to Queen Street. So basically after Edinburgh Waverley, the service calls it Haymarket, Falkirk High and Glasgow Queen Street. You have to stop for a second because of the train, but yeah. So after Edinburgh Waverley, the Lumo service calls at Haymarket, Falkirk High and Glasgow Queen Street. The previous LNER service to Glasgow called at Haymarket, Motherwell and Glasgow Central. I think that it's Glasgow Queen Street is not as big as the name of Glasgow Central, but it still works for Lumo. And Falkirk now has direct trains to London. But yeah, I think the East Coast to Glasgow is generally a really good thing. And going back to what Ryland said about trains in the northeast of England about LNER, my opinion is the likes of Transpennine Express and Cross Country will start to become more popular with customers in the northeast of England. So your likes of Durham and Darlington, Alnmouth and Berwick. And the reason I didn't say Newcastle is because Newcastle has 3 trains an hour to London King's Cross. So yeah, because LNER, there's like, I don't think any trains to Edinburgh call at Durham anymore. A reduced service from Darlington. Barely any trains call at Morpeth, a few call at Alnmouth, and then some at Berwick upon Tweed. Whereas Cross Country call at all of those destinations. Well, they alternate between Morpeth, Alnmouth and Berwick anyway, but yeah, I can just see, as well as Transpennine Express, they have the hourly service between Newcastle and Edinburgh Waverley, calls at every station in between. I can definitely see the likes of Cross Country and Transpennine Express being more popular with customers in the northeast of England. Again, talking about Lumo, as a lot of you guys may already know, you may not, Lumo is starting a new service from London Euston on the West Coast Main Line to Stirling in central Scotland. So the way the service is going to work, it's going to be operated by class 222s, which used to belong to East Midlands Railway, and I think this is right, so it will call at Milton Keynes Central, Nuneaton, Crewe, Preston, Carlisle, Lockerbie, Motherwell, Whifflet, Greenfields, Larbert and Stirling. So I guess that's good. Here we have a fast class, so I don't have to stop for a second. So the Lumo service to Stirling is definitely a great addition for some parts of the West Coast Main Line. Not all parts, but for some parts. Good for some areas of Scotland like Motherwell, Greenfields and Whifflet to have direct trains to London. I don't know whether this will be a successful service because LNER did withdraw their direct service that would terminate at Stirling a few years ago.
And also I think with the Lumo service as well to Stirling, now that obviously you've seen it on the East Coast where LNER and Lumo meet it, I wonder if it'll be similar with this in terms of getting to Scotland where Atlantic and Lumo are going to start doing a similar thing. So Lumo again will still do that thing where, because the thing is with Atlantic West Coast is obviously the cost of the tickets aren't always, they're quite expensive in places, so obviously Lumo will offer a cheap service that's probably again sort of similar to what they do on the East Coast where it's like £60-something, so that's where my sort of thinking was coming into that.
The question is, will this Lumo service to Stirling last and will it be successful? Because like I already said, LNER used to have a service that would run from these spots and terminate at Stirling, finish at Stirling, and that service got withdrew in December 2024 because I guess not enough people were travelling onwards towards Stirling from like Edinburgh. So will it last? Not sure, but I'm very much excited to see the class 222s on the West Coast Main Line because the class 221s used to operate the Virgin trains in the West Coast. They're one of my favourites. And the 222s are basically the same, just a bit more sleek and a bit more like round, I guess. But I'm very excited to see the class 222s on the West Coast Main Line.
So I'll start by talking about my three favourite stations on the East Coast Main Line. So a station I went to back in 2024, this was absolutely fantastic, and I'm planning to go back again this year. Hatfield, which is only not far out of London, it's only probably about 10-12 minutes or something like that. You can get either a Great Northern or a Tectric up there. Like just the amount of frequency, the amount of frequency that you get through Hatfield. You've got LNER, Lumo, Grand Central, Hull Trains, Thameslink, Great Northern, I already said Great Northern, but yeah, all those operators coming together. Like every single time, there'll always be a train passing every 2 seconds. The signal will go from green to yellow and red, and then just every second there's always a train, which is absolutely fantastic. So frequency through there is something else. My next favourite station is I'm planning to go to, haven't been to fully for a while, probably not since 2022, York. So do stay tuned for that in the next month. York is absolutely fantastic for its frequency as well, and also just the shelter in general is absolutely lovely. Like the canopy is really something else that when you like coming into York Station, it really is amazing. And then another one I have been to in the past is Newcastle, because you can see like literally the castle right in front of you. You can see the trains coming around the curve, and then also trains down to London as well. So, and even like when you're putting into Newcastle and you go over that bridge and go over the River Tyne, it is absolutely something. It is, literally a masterpiece. So yeah.
So my favourite stations on the East Coast Main Line. So my first favourite would also be Newcastle, because of what it is. Because I have a lot of connections to the city of Newcastle. I support Newcastle United and family and everything. Newcastle not the best, but it's so good for train sport in Newcastle. You have so much variety. Excuse me. You have LNER, Transparent Express, Lumo, Cross Country, and a bit of Northern as well. So great for variety. Great location with the castle on the curve, and you have the bridges around it. So yeah, Newcastle would be my favourite. I'm also a massive fan of Edinburgh Waverley, because of what the station is. It's very significant. great trains you see there. So you see LNER, Cross Country, Lumo, TPE, Transatlantic Express, and a bit of ScotRail as well. And I'm also a massive fan of Almouth in Northumberland, because I've got a lot of like memories and holidays I've been to that station for. Really good at train spotting across that valley thing, the Aln Valley. Stunning, lovely viaduct in the Northumberland countryside. So that'd be my top 3. But another station I would like to shout out is Manners in Newcastle. It's absolutely brilliant. If you ever get the chance to go, you have to go there. It's right in the heart of Newcastle City Centre, with various buildings, backdrops. It's really good for filming. It's very curvy. You get great tones there. So that would be my top 3 favourite stations on the East Coast Main Line.
About 3 top favourite stations of the West Coast Main Line, as it is. I did do a bit of content on the West Coast Main Line last year. My first favourite station will definitely have to be Rugby. Just absolutely the way to start it off, you know, the Pendolino's doing the tilt. I've seen it on lots of videos myself, like when they do hit the curve at 125 around, straight up the fast line through to the Trent Valley. And then when I did Euston, Scotland last year, literally past Rugby at very high speed, and just I could literally feel the tilt coming in about 9 degrees. It was absolutely fantastic. My second favourite station would be Tamworth, and it is just it's one of those places you don't really know where to start. I went there twice. I went to Tamworth the first time in April. Literally just non-stop tones through there, non-stop freight. It was just constant. And then also the high level as well of Tamworth that you've got. There is a train passing as well.
Speaking of the West Coast Main Line.
And then also and then I went back into Tamworth again just the day before I went to Derby for the biggest event of Rail 200 last year, which was the Greatest Gathering, which I know you've been to as well. And then, yeah, Tamworth just absolutely brilliant. I saw a lot of the rail movements go up to Derby for the event. And then my third favourite station, I spent a couple of days around September time. I went to Crewe to go and see a rail tour, to go and see Blue Pizza. She was absolutely amazing to see. She's a lovely LNER class A2 steam locomotive. And then also, you know, just the frequency, like, you know, operators again, you know, you've got Transport for Wales, you know, you've got Fancy West Coast, yeah, you've got a mix of stop in, fast passing, etc. And then you've got Northern as well. Very occasionally you'd see them go to Manchester via Sandbach. And then also, you know, even just seeing Pendolinos do their thing as well, you know, even like when they stop and they go out of the station to head north, it is absolutely amazing. There you go.
So my top 3 favourite stations on the West Coast Main Line is going to be, at number 1, it's going to be, obviously it's got to be Glasgow Central. I filmed 5 train spotting videos there across May and October. Where do I start with Glasgow Central? Because it is so grand, it is so significant, such a big name. Visually it is beautiful. It's so good for train spotting, especially if you stand at the end of platform 9, you get to see all down the lines coming in across the Caledonia Railway Bridge. Stand on platform 1 and 2, you get really close up to the Pendolinos, and it just feels really good to see a Pendolino at Glasgow Central, knowing it's came all this way from London. And it's just so, the architecture is brilliant. It's like above Argyle Street in Glasgow. It's really impressive. It's so good, and Glasgow is something I want to do annually. Here comes another class 39 Pendolino, so I'll just stop for a sec. My second favourite station would be Milton Keynes Central, which is about half a mile down that way. So as I said, my second favourite station is Milton Keynes Central, which is half a mile away. I believe that Milton Keynes Central is one of the best stations of the West Coast Main Line for what you can see. You see all the London North Western Railway services to and from Milton Keynes, Birmingham New Street and Crewe. A good mixture of fast Atlantic West Coast services and the stopping ones. And because it's south of Rugby, it's where all the lines, like the different destinations of the West Coast Main Line, all run together. So the frequency is crazy. You see loads. You see every destination of the West Coast Main Line goes through Milton Keynes Central. And then my third favourite would be here at Walton, because simply it's so good for train spotting. You get loads of tones, tilt and Pendolinos. It's great on a perfect sunny day like it is today. So that would be my top 3 favourite stations on the West Coast Main Line.
So we are coming up to the end of January already. The first month has gone flying, but let's take a bit of time just to quickly reflect on last month, well, last year in general. Last year was a very big year, and again, another train is about to pass.
We've got the West Coast Main Line.
Yeah, one of the biggest year. 2025 wasn't just a year; it was a year of, within the railway, it was 200 years of celebration. To see how the railway has evolved over
2025
over the number of years.
Pride in history, the railways.
Yes, and even since 1825, how it's all, how it all became Darlington and Stockton, I think it was, to how it is, the technology that's
The UK
evolved
is
now.
the mother of the railways. We have the best railways. Even when everything goes wrong, we have the best railways, and that's just how it is.
Yeah. But also something that, me and Lucas, who attended this specific event called the Greatest Gathering last year. Obviously, I went on the Friday. What day did you go?
I went on Saturday the 2nd.
Saturday the 2nd, yeah. But that event was just a whole new everything was there, everything you wanted to see. The day would pass by so quickly, but it was such a great event. Everything to see you wanted. Like the Pride Pendolino was there. I managed to get inside that as well.
Same.
The train is about to pass again. But just seeing everything, all the trains and the 350s just lined together. The first thing that you see when you walk through the Rail 200 Inspiration train, which I have actually seen on the East Coast Main Line, interestingly enough, after I passed St Neots. But yeah, just the Greatest Gathering was just one of the best events. I'm very grateful to have attended that event. Getting tickets was quite a tricky thing, but it was honestly the best event and never will forget it.
So with my 2025, where do I begin? It was so brilliant. It was just so brilliant. So 2024, I barely made any videos. I did basically nothing because I had other things going on in life and was into other things outside the railways. Sort of came back in January with a train spotting session in Milton Keynes. In February did that as well. March fairly quiet. April fairly quiet as well, but I did go to Newcastle and Tyne Wear. Not focusing on Newcastle Station, but focusing on the Tyne Wear Metro. I did some train spotting videos at Whitley Bay and Tynemouth. May is when it all started to get really good because I went to Glasgow and Edinburgh for the first time, did Milton Keynes loads of times. June I got a new phone and started to really get into the video editing and the quality of my videos, and started coming out train spotting every week in the summer to Milton Keynes, Wolverton. I've also been to Cheddington as well, also been to Banbury as well. That was quite nice to see some Chiltern railways and cross countries. August was, where do I begin with August? It was so good because the Greatest Gathering was brilliant. I loved it because what it is to celebrate 200 years of railways, what was there, and just the spirit of it. Everyone just chatting, enjoying themselves, and everyone with their cameras taking pictures of the trains and getting your shoes dirty on the tracks and everything. But yeah, and also in August I had my trip to Northumberland, family holiday. Went LNER first class. Please, if you want to, check out the video, it's really good. I also train spotting at Newcastle, Manners and Almouth, as I mentioned before. September, fairly quiet, did a few Milton Keynes, Central, Wolverton. October was my second favourite month because Glasgow, my second trip to Glasgow, where I really started to discover the city, really get engaged with the train spotting, and really starting to know where I am and enjoy where I am. Because the first trip to Glasgow, my old phone wasn't that good, and I didn't really know anything, and the video editing was a bit inaccurate, so it wasn't the best, but it was decent. And so many great photos, great memories in Glasgow. November, a few Milton Keynes, Wolverton. I went to Euston on my birthday, surprise trip to London, Euston. Also, you guys if you want to watch that video. December, fairly quiet month. I did a few Milton Keynes, Wolverton. I did a Christmas session at Milton Keynes Central on the 23rd, whereas everyone's travelling around for Christmas. So yeah, that's 2025, sort of all in a few minutes. The best year in modern railway history. Mostly because of Railway 200, the Greatest Gathering, but also for me on a personal level, where I started to really understand my surroundings, really started to get into social media. Obviously I started up on Instagram and TikTok, and get into video editing and just really improving myself.
So in terms of plans for 2026, my main focus as of until sort of around July time, just want to try and focus on working through and getting through content for East Coast Mainline. I've still got quite a few route visuals to top it up on. I have done about 25% of it so far. I've done sort of like Edinburgh to Aberdeen, etc. But there are still a couple of areas that need to be covered, so I'm planning to obviously do York next month. I'm hoping to sort of cover route visuals between Leeds and King's Cross, something that I haven't done yet, especially with the new timetable change as well, see what that looks like as well from the video. And then also do other route visuals and other operators like Grand Central, and then Hull Trains, and hoping to do Lumo in March most likely, from testing their extension to Queen Street, but obviously riding the train from King's Cross, so doing the whole 5.5 hours, which will be absolutely exciting. Then hopefully after that, I have got a few West Coast Mainline videos to top up, because I want to do the rest of the other lines like Lime Street, Manchester, etc. And then also, I am hoping as well to do this year a Midland Mainline route visual as well, go on the Class A10 for the first time. I don't know when that's going to be, but more information will come out about that closer to the time. But yeah, that's kind of my 2026.
So for 2026, I don't really have anything like structured as in what lines I'm going to do, but obviously I will just keep on making the West Coast Mainline videos like Milton Keynes, Walton. I do want to go to the other stations, so I want to go to Euston again, I want to go to Tamworth, I want to go to like the stations of the Trent Valley section. I'm going to Birmingham New Street in about just under 3 weeks time. There'll be probably 2 videos from that, because I'm going to spend the whole day there, maybe 3 videos. I'm also going away for 5 days in April to Newcastle, Edinburgh and Glasgow, so you can expect videos on cross country and train spotting at Newcastle, Manners, Edinburgh Waverley, Glasgow Queen Street, Glasgow Central. I'm quite keen on doing some stations on the Argyll line in Glasgow, which is just the suburban line, so in Glasgow and the surrounding counties. So I'm so excited for that. So much videos come from that, probably maybe 10 videos, but I want to be more adventurous of the West Coast Main Line. I'm also quite keen on going to Manchester. I want to go to Stafford and things like that. Crewe is a must visit for any person who.
It's a big
yeah, you've got to do it if you're on the West Coast Main Line. Yeah. So yeah, there'll be East Coast Mainline content. I can also have the ability to pop up to Banbury on the Chiltern Mainline. I want to catch some of those new Mark V thingies. And yeah, so I don't really have a structure of what I'm doing, but it's just all the usual stuff. But obviously with my new phone, new editing software, it's going to be made so much better. So then guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching this amazing collab video today, here on YouTube. You can subscribe to me on YouTube, Trains United. I make long, detailed, informative and entertaining train spotting videos, train journeys and everything, West Coast Main Line, loads of lines. You can also, so make sure you subscribe, so you get all the latest updates on my videos and content. You can, you guys will be missing out if you don't, but you guys can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I do shorter videos, photos, stories. So you can also find me on Instagram and TikTok, where I do shorter videos, photos, stories, and everything. Like, so you get to see everything as it happens. Like, you don't have to wait for the video, you get to see everything as it happens. And yeah, so thank you for watching.
And then also, my channel name as well is Western Rail Spotter. You can also subscribe to me on YouTube. We'll have links and everything in the description and stuff like that. I am also on Instagram, again, just same as my channel name, and same on TikTok as well. So yeah, and it's been fantastic to do this video with you today. It's been really good to finally meet again since 3 months ago when we first met. Glasgow Central.
Yeah.